little port is pride and dignity. Stop the New World Order. Welcome to her Panwo TV. And I'm in Oxford. It's a lovely sunny morning in Oxford. This is the famous High Street view. Exam halls there. St Mary's College. There's a big Willie and there's the dome behind it. Oh, you've seen that before, haven't you? I've done that. Anyway, I'm heading off again. I'm on tour for the third time in a month. I'm going on tour. Yes, I am going this time to Truth Seekers North East. Remember the last time I went there, I did my zombie talk. Oh, I've missed those guys because, of course, as you know, that group has particular fondness for me. They've become close personal friends, and so it's going to be good to see them again sometime. Missed them, you know. So I last saw them about a year ago. Since then, of course, there was the second lockdown, and that was it. No more travel. Getting in there now quickly before the third lockdown, which is probably going to turn up at some point. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm doing a talk for them. It's basically, well, it's the same talk I've done at Bases and Awake and Aware. However, I have changed it slightly. As you know, the Awake and Aware talk was a little bit different to the Bases one. This one's going to be considerably different. It's going to be considerably expanded because I've got an hour and a half on stage instead of 1 hour. It should be good. I think it works best actually slightly longer than the one that I've been doing so far. Rather unusually, I'm getting the train this time. Long story, I'll explain as we go along. But I'm not going to the coach station, I'm going to the railway station. So I'm going to head up off the High Street now. We're almost at Oriel College, where the statue of Rose luckily is still there. Hopefully it will remain there. But you've already seen that bit. It's just ahead of us. It's just ahead of us up there. So I don't need to show it you again. So let us head there now to the railway station. Alright, I'm on Oxford Station here, platform 4. I've got to wait for my train. I've got to travel off peak, which means you can't get any train before 9:30. That way you get a cheaper ticket, and I say cheaper comparatively. My train ticket was £162.50 return, off-peak return. If it'd been peak, it would have been even more than that. Peak means you can travel before 9:30 AM, and I think was it between 4 and 5 or something like that. That is pretty well. The coach, of course, is less than half that. If you travel by coach on the same journey as I normally do, it's less than half that price. So normally, of course, I'd go by coach. Now, the difference is this is going to take, to get to Newcastle, is going to take just over 4 hours, whereas with the coach, it's about 8 hours. So the train is a lot quicker. Now, the story about how I ended up travelling by train is the coach for a change is quite amazing. I won't name him, but one of the members of Truth Seekers North East has actually offered to pay for me to add his own. Well, he did a speech and he added his own fee to mine to the cost it takes to bring me here, so I could travel by train. That is extraordinarily generous of this guy, and when I see him, I'm going to thank him personally, because that's a very, very generous thing. The fact of the matter is, though, I don't actually enjoy train travel very much. I find it very stressful, but it does get you there quicker. That's one thing I can say. It does get you there quicker. I've got to get a train to Birmingham, which it takes just over an hour to get to Birmingham from here on the express. I have then to I've got literally about 13 minutes to get from the train. It's assuming the train arrives on time and there are no delays. I've got 13 minutes to get from my train, the train that drops me off in Birmingham, to my connection to get to Newcastle. It's a bit. When I found this out, I was a bit annoyed because they used to be able to travel direct to Newcastle from here without changing. I know, because that's when I was on Rich Planet TV. That's the route I took the first time I was on Rich Planet TV, which is back in 2010 or so. Now you have to change. You either change. You can either change via Birmingham, or you go all the way to London and change there, which takes much longer.
This is a security message
Security message.
Or text the British Transport Police on 61016. Wheel sorted. See it, say it, sorted.
This is for your protection. Yeah. There is a level 2 curfew in force right now for white males only. And yeah, again, this sort of thing adds to the stress of travelling by train, unfortunately. Train, firstly, there's all kinds of reasons why I dislike train travel. Despite the faster speed, you're not guaranteed a seat. Lots of trains are overcrowded. People have to stand. Well, I don't stand. I just lie on the floor. I can't stand for long periods of time because of various health problems I have. Specifically, sciatica, osteoarthritis I've got as well. I'm very mildly at the moment, but it still means I can't stand for long periods. So I just lie on the floor. Also, on coaches, you're not allowed to drink. Alcohol is banned, whereas on trains, they can't wait to sell you their overpriced cans of lager. They have someone with a trolley going up and down the aisle every half hour saying, beers and wines and spirits. And of course, you get the knobheads who get drunk and they cause trouble. Yeah, try. And then of course there's delays. If my train to Birmingham is in any way delayed, I'm going to miss my connection. I'm going to have to get a later train. I have to text Maureen and just say sorry, I'm going to be an hour later or something like that. Not that. I understand it's a nice train. I do understand the attraction of trains if you're a train spotter, but on coaches, of course, you get delayed as well. But at least on coach, you always have a seat. You always know you're not going to get some lager sodden football fan mouthing off in your ear. I still think what this gentleman did is very generous, and I'm going to say thank you very much to him. But once I get there, I'll be glad I went by train, because I'll be arriving. I only had to get up at 7:15 this morning to get the train. When I get in the coach, I have to get up like about 5:30, and I don't get there till like 4 p.m. or something. I'm going to get there if everything goes well. I'll get there about 2:30. And I only had to get about 9:15. Well, of course, from my journey back from Cardiff the other week. Do you remember when I went to? That's the Penta Skywatch video. Just simply getting the train. It cuts like. I think it was about a third the length of the journey that it would have been otherwise. I left Cardiff later, and I arrived back about 2 hours before I would have otherwise. Oh well. Okay, guys. Now I've got about 40 minutes to wait. This here is a charity bookstall. Just put your money in there. You can just buy something to read on the train if you want. Now this is interesting. I saw this book here. The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Rich Album. The funny thing is, I haven't seen that book for ages, but I've read it before and it's very good. I'm not going to take it and leave it there for someone else. But if you ever see that book and you've not read it, please do. It's excellent. I'm on the train now. We've just left Birmingham International. We're almost in Birmingham on this short 1 hour journey between Oxford and Britain's second city. I've left the cabin early, so I'm coming to the vestibule because I've now got to run the gauntlet at Birmingham New Street Station, which is like a maze. Just imagine a maze with branches of Costa and W.A. Smiths everywhere. W.A. Smith without the Nexi, of course. I didn't check to see if Nexus was there, but I won't have time to check. It was there once, I remember. But I asked the lady at the till in Oxford, and she said I've got it at platform 8. I've got about 13 minutes to find my way to get that train. If I miss it, I've got to wait God knows how long for the next one. So anyway, it's in just a few minutes' time, I'll be in Birmingham. A city I regard very similar as J.R. Tolkien did. And Birmingham New Street Station is probably one of the most oppressive parts of the city, actually. So, wish me luck. There will be another message from me in a moment, if all goes well. Made it. Bloody hell, I made it. It's unbelievable. It's like You've got to go through 2 ticket barriers. There's a red blown zone, blue zone, green zone, and the train was about 5 minutes delayed, so I literally had like about 7 minutes to get here, and I've got with about 3 minutes to spare. Here we are. Well, I've got here now. Train's on time. I text Maureen, so it should be picking me up. It's nice to get here a bit early, I must say. Although this train's been making strange noises. There's been like a rattling sound underneath. Like there's something loose. Doesn't seem to have affected us though, we're still moving. Just waiting on the bridge right now until we can enter the station. Made it.
Take your seats. I know here with Ben Emlyn-Jones, and he's going to talk about is there any hope? And of course there's hope, even though Richard says there's not. We're all going to die.
I'm talking in the long term.
Yeah, we'll not be here. We won't. It won't be in our lifetime.
It won't be on our watch.
It'll be our grandkids, our great grandkids. Nothing to worry about. Nothing to worry about. But Ben is going to uplift with, aren't you, Ben?
I hope so, yes.
Is there any hope? Is there any hope?
Yeah.
I'll leave it with you, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you, Truth Seekers North East. It's great to be back here again after our long incarceration in the lockdown. I mean, I'm sure you all share my feelings in that respect. I've missed you guys very much. I've not been here for about a year, but you're my favourite touring spot, shall we say. Yes, my name is Ben Emlyn-Jones. It's great to be back here again, and I'm going to ask a crucial question. What's going to happen next? I'm going to give you some perspectives on what I think is going to happen in the next couple of years based on my study of current affairs and the immediate past. Now, I've sort of got 2 titles for this. I wasn't sure which one to use. One is there any hope, as Maureen's just said. What's going to happen next is the other title. I'll provide answers to both of those questions in the course of this particular discussion. But of course, as you just heard from Richard, there are natural forces at work in the world. I'll be covering those. But there are also forces among ourselves as a species and our interaction with possibly other intelligent non-human species, which I think have an influence on our destiny within this changing universe and planet we live on. And the way we behave, I think, is influence. We're not helpless when these disasters that Richard talks about hits, and they will inevitably. We have the ability to maybe come out on top if we ourselves behave in a certain particular way. Ian R. Crane, this is for you.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this guy. You've heard of him, I think most of you have heard of this guy. Yeah, he's a brilliant bloke. Died a couple of months ago. He was an anti-fracking campaigner, anti-New World Order campaigner, researcher and activist into deep geopolitics. Former oil company executive, living the life of Riley. He could have lived his entire life quite comfortably within the system. Very comfortably indeed, more comfortably than most of us. But he couldn't. His conscience wouldn't let him. He left everything behind to live in a caravan, to organise conferences like the Alternative View and all the other wonderful things he did. Please do go online, look at this guy, look at the YouTube he left behind. He never wrote a book, unlike most people, he never wrote a book, but he did leave behind hundreds of hours of lectures, which are all available on YouTube and other platforms. Go and check him out, listen to what he has to say, because I tell you what, he was hugely influential on me. So this is dedicated to the loving memory of Ian R. Crane. Now when it comes to human civilization, I believe there are 4 pillars of civilization. And I'm going to discuss each and every one of them. Now this is a slightly small image here, but that's a pile of coins. Now one of those is a productive economy, one which can produce a high standard of living for all citizens. Now that seems to be failing. I don't know many people now who are better off than they were 10 years ago, 5 years ago even, it appears that the ability of the economy to sustain a high standard of living is failing. Life is becoming more and more of a struggle. Concepts such as housewives and even retirement is now becoming less and less likely. More parents have, both parents have to work, and the mother who used to stay at home look after the children now has to go out to work as well with the father. And the children, well, what do the children do? The state says, don't you worry about them, we'll take care of your children for you. Yeah, that's a problem. I've got a feeling that if things go the way they are, future children in their history lessons will open up a school book and they'll see pictures of old men playing golf and saying, who are they? They retired. They actually earned enough money during the course of their life, they can actually stop work at a certain point and live maybe the last couple of decades of their life without having to work. Oh, really? Yeah. So that's what. Another is, I would call it free speech. I use the term free speech here, but this includes logic and science. The free exchange of ideas, that is now under attack. That is, we no longer have a situation where we can just say whatever we want and test any idea we have to the powers of reason, which is what free speech is all about, where you just have a freedom of conscience, in other words. Today, people who do this, who express certain ideas, are treated as either semi-criminal or criminal. And the punishments can range anything from facing genuine criminal charges simply to public harassment and ostracisation, losing of employment and things like this. This is extremely dangerous, the fact that we don't have that anymore. We are essentially having conformity to certain ideas coerced on us. Even if it's not official through the law, it is something tacit within society. And this is organised by, it's amazing and frightening how easily people can be made to behave in a certain way without actual coercion, through the education, through the media, through peer pressure, etc., etc. And without the free exchange of ideas, we no longer live in a free country. And in fact, you don't hear that refrain anymore. I've not heard that refrain for ages. No. That sarcastic little jibe people used to go, walk into a pub and you see someone, some idiot you don't like. Can I take that seat? It's a free country, mate. I haven't heard that for years. I think people know deep down it's not free. The rule of law is the third pillar of civilization. This is a riot in the United States, which happened last year. The rioting, it goes through phases. You have, in the late 60s, there was a large amount of rioting as well, often built up through racial tension, which is deliberately stirred up. Believe you and me, this is a deliberate tactic to make people hate other people or hate themselves because of the colour of their skin. The Black Lives Matter movement is not some grassroots civil rights institution. It is funded and organised at a very high level by some very rich and powerful people.
Soros.
Yeah, Soros. The Clintons. Even before George Floyd was shot, 100 weights of bricks were being ordered from builders' yards by persons unknown and left in the street. They were just waiting, and what they say they said it in RoboCop, we just wait till some poor soul volunteers. And George Floyd volunteered, and they said, right, that's it, let's go. And democracy, that's the fourth pillar of civilization. I use the word democracy. Democracy is has its own problems, just like dictatorship has. But basically, what I'm saying is a leadership which is accountable to the population, which has what you might call a noblesse oblige. The Chinese use the phrase the mandate of heaven. This basically simply means political leaders who are subject to selection and recall by the population. We no longer have that. We have had some very, very dodgy political decisions made in the last few decades in various countries in the world. It was always thought that the United States of America, the world's leading democracy, would be immune to this. Well, the recent presidential election indicates that's not true. The current incumbent president of the United States, I believe, has not been elected legitimately. I believe he was instituted by fraud, organised by some very powerful international power brokers who decided that he was the president they wanted, not Donald Trump. I'll come back to that in a minute. Again, so all four pillars of civilization are under attack. And wars keep breaking out all the time. They keep breaking out almost And they go on for so long that people can't even remember how they started or why they started. The invasion of Afghanistan took place in 2002, but it was it was started by 9/11, and the troops were already moved into Afghanistan ready, apparently on an exercise, or they were nearby. They were in a country nearby. Yet now people look back and they think, well, some people haven't even heard of Bin Laden for a long time. Osama Bin Laden has kind of been forgotten. Yet there are still wars breaking out. There are new ones threatening all the time. And no matter how unproductive the economy is, money can be found for wars. Money can be borrowed. In fact, I saw something quite saddened me enormously to do with the Federal Reserve Act and how it moved America off the gold standard and the rest of the world followed from the Bank of England. It was organised at the Bank of England level. If that hadn't happened, you wouldn't have had World War I or World War II, simply because they'd be too expensive. No one would be able to borrow that amount of money to carry out all that carnage. Would never have happened.
So you can print that much money.
Yeah, you literally, with a gold standard economy, you couldn't have wars on that scale. So the thing about it is, I mean, no one's invaded. These are all foreign wars that the troops are sent abroad to deal with. Very often their mission is to depose a leader who just a handful of years ago, less than a decade in some cases, was the most favoured partner of our nations, who's suddenly fallen out of favour, and now we need a terribly destructive war to get rid of them. Maybe if you wait long enough, he'll get back into favour. That's the only way they'll stop these wars. But of course, as George Orwell said, wars are not designed to be won or lost, they're designed to be continuous. War, not only does it keep the arms trade going, in the case of some countries like the United States, it's their principal export, it keeps the people's attention focused on fearful and upsetting things. It traumatises the population. We see horrible sights. A lot of us either served in the military, we have relatives in the military, we lose members of our family. And that, believe it or not, is deliberate. The elite of this world want us to be like that. They want us to die and suffer and feel hardship. Environmental damage. Now, I happen to agree with Richard about climate change and global warming, things like that. You cannot deny, however, that human activity does damage the environment enormously. And whether or not you believe in man-made climate change, obviously there are activities we are doing right now which is harming the planet we live on. This is a forest fire in Brazil. There are more and more of these happening. The forest fires, incidentally, are not caused by climate change, they're caused by poor land management and the banning of pruning undergrowth and things like that.
And direct weapons?
Yes, that's a good point, yeah. A lot of them are engineered, like I said. Well, the ones in California certainly were deliberately started. Again, it's an industry. These firefighters who go in and risk their lives. A lot of these, I think like 20 firemen died in California. It makes people a lot of money. It clears land, it gets rid of inconvenient land ownership rights and things like that. But the damage being done to the environment through plastic litter in the oceans is a big one. Richard mentioned pollution. You know, these are terrible things, but they could be eliminated simply for us changing our lifestyle. And by changing our lifestyle, I mean adopting behaviours and practices within our economy, within our energy generation system, within our industries, which are different. But the powers that be in this world don't want us to do that.
No, they keep buying plastic.
They want us to keep shite, and they also want us to damage the environment, I think. Ian R. Crane called it the war on terror, T-E-R-R-A, the war against the earth. Now the police are changing a lot, haven't you? Because along with wars abroad, states are waging wars against their own people. They are waging wars, they're basically attacking us, harming us, violating, incarcerating, imposing ridiculous laws against us, even taking away the coronavirus. There's so many nonsense laws going around. It's unbelievable. This is just an illustration of how police have changed over the years. Just look at the difference. Look at those two guys on the right. If you were an old lady, would you ask them to escort you across the road? And it's a sad state of affairs. Now, entertainment, home entertainment, all kinds of entertainment has reached a level we've never seen before. A level we all carry little computers around with us where we can access information. All kinds of things, movies, TV shows, books, magazines. Though only about 20% of people actually read books these days, which is a shame. Newspapers and things like that. In fact, if you read books, you're a lot better off because books are often a lot more intelligent. Televisions have increased enormously. I mean, there are TV screens now, which most people have, that are bigger than this one. This is quite small compared to some people's TVs. They can be as big as the... That's not a criticism. Yeah, no, honestly, this one's fine. You know, I'm actually of that generation, I'm showing my age now, where a TV was a small box in the corner of a room. There were just 3 or 4 channels, and there were maybe... And I'll tell you what, though, and despite the fact that the budget of TV production today is soared, it's on the level of Hollywood now. Television programs are made with the same resources that the big screen cinema is made. The actual quality in terms of technical creativity, intellectual content has plummeted. The 9,000 channels you have access to, with billions and billions of dollars spent on production, are, for the most part, the production of mental sewage. In the past, this is why I love TV programs from more than 2 decades ago are my favourites. There were some real gems, there were some real good ones. Before television was turned into a means of control and of limiting ourselves, of programming us not to think, not to feel, or to think and feel in a certain way. When you watch your TV, that's what's being attempted to be done to you. I know the people in this room can see through it, and you're not going to be affected in the same way because you can see through it. Most people can't. Most people will watch it, and I can hear them repeating catchphrases that they heard. I just hear them, you know. I hear them talking about soap opera stars. I mean,
Love Island.
yeah. I mean, I heard someone said I was complaining. I really dislike EastEnders, for example, the soap opera. And I was saying to someone once, you know, it's how bad it was, and they said, look, EastEnders, it's just realistic. EastEnders is a reflection on society. And I said, 12 million people every week watch that pile of effluent. Is EastEnders really influencing society, or is it the other way round? And so this, that's what watching the TV means. And then, you know what? What was it they said on Edge Media? Watching you, watching us, watching them. It's not just you watching the TV now, the TV watches you. This one doesn't have it, but some TVs have a camera in them. Why would a TV set have a camera in it, like your laptop screen? The camera, according to Edward Snowden, who exposed the Vault 7 electronic surveillance system, which the CIA has, is used to monitor citizens. They watch you. It's like 1984 now, isn't it? Winston Smith, bend lower. The telescreen is here. In 1984, in the society, everyone in the Big Brother state has a device in their home, which is a television set, but it's got a camera in it, so you can be watched. It can't be switched off. The camera covers every angle of the room. The ultimate goal, now this is a bit small here, but it's actually, you can see it says United Earth, and there is like a laurel wreath, which is symbolic of the Roman Empire, which I believe is another attempt to create United Earth. The goal is for a one world government. That's where we're headed. There's going to be some kind of post-democratic global state. That is the ultimate intention of the powers that be in this world. The powers that shouldn't be. The powers that were, as some people call them. This may be true. They want to eliminate all individuality, all communities, all senses of national identity, and put us all into a global homogeneous system, global homo for short. And that's not a slight against homosexual people, by the way. It's just short for homogeneous, which means everything the same. And they do it. They want it like that economically, politically, culturally, psychologically, and they've got some of the best experts in all those fields to create this system. So where did this all begin? Well, as Richard has explained, we've been through several cycles of civilization, through collapse, fall, rise and fall. The previous one, and this is a picture of Atlantis, where Atlantis was, It could have been on Doggerland, like I say.
Yeah.
It could have. Some people say this was actually in the Sahara Desert, and that used to be below sea level.
But
And
the Rikat structure.
yeah, the Rikat structure is amazing if you've not seen
I
it.
think it was Hyperborea.
Yeah, it's in a remote area. It's very difficult to get to, but there's a place in the Sahara Desert like that. There's but whatever it was, we go through a sine wave from barbarism to civilization. It appears. Sometimes it's natural disasters that end it. Edmund Marriage has talked about this as well. It could be that sometimes the civilization itself it becomes its own problem and destroys itself through war and through economic catastrophe and things like that. Now, what happened was, during the last descendancy, at the end of the period known as Atlantis, an organisation, a secret society, came to power in this civilization. There's several words for this. I use the word Illuminati. You might prefer Cabal, Deep State. I'm sure you've heard all of these different names. It was, some people put it down simply to literally a group of people. I suspect it's something different. I suspect it's some kind of malevolent supernatural force that works through individuals. Sometimes it makes them appear in reptilian form, as David Icke says. Oh, I don't discount that. Well, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the effect they're having. They put their symbol here on this American banknote. This is the dollar bill. That is the panopticon, the all-seeing eye there, which is supposedly God, but I don't think it's God at all. It has a slightly wrinkled appearance, as if it's a lizard's eye. Novus Ordo Seclorum means new order of the world, new world order. It's the Illuminati survived the fall of Atlantis and remained in hiding for several millennia through the period following that destruction, until the ancient civilizations rose sometime at the end of the 3rd millennium BC at Sumer, ancient Egypt, where they slowly began to take power. They didn't do it completely, and they haven't even today done that completely, but that's been their goal. They call it the great work of the ages, through all of history as we know it, from when history as we know it began. That's been their plan. Around about 2,000 years ago, this agenda truly came of age in the form of the Roman Empire. This is an extraordinary political structure that stretched from where we are now in the north of England all the way to the Persian Gulf, and it included various provinces. It was the eternal city. Rome was the eternal city where it was based, and something of this size and with that amount of power appears to be invincible. It's not, and I'll come to that in a minute. But in order to protect it, now I want you to just look at the top left there. That's Britannia. That's just one province of the Roman Empire that covers the island of Great Britain right up basically to where we are now at Hadrian's Wall. Now Hadrian's Wall, you know this very well. I've been looking at this book that Richard's just got here from Dawn, Hadrian's Wall, the Wall Walks. This is just somebody it's a tour guide of Hadrian's Wall. It begins at Wall's End, at the end of the wall, which is more or less where we are. It stretches 73 miles to the Solway Firth on the other side of the country. This is an absolutely remarkable piece of engineering and archaeology. It was one of the wonders of the world. Huge amount of effort went into constructing this. Why, you may wonder? Why did they do that?
To keep the rain out, but it didn't work.
Not the rain. It didn't really. I mean, what we see today is just a fragment. It's just the foundations, basically. These walls were like 20 feet high.
Would have been about 16, 20 feet high.
They were high. Yeah, they had fortresses along them. Thousands of soldiers were from. About a quarter of the Roman military machine was in Britain at any one time. There were ditches as well, dug as well on either side for defensive purposes. Now, this was to keep out the Caledonians and the Picts. Now, these were the independent people of what we today call Scotland and Northumberland, north of here. But these must have been real badasses, wasn't they? Or either that, or they were very concerned about invasion from the north, because they valued very much the land to the south of the wall, Britannia. And this was actually controversial in its contemporary times. In the Roman Senate, a lot of people said, why are we, as Romans, focusing so much on Britain? Why is Britain so important to us? Why did we get us? It took us hundreds of years to conquer this land. This actually was constructed about 150 years after the conquest. Well, the conquest was very slow. It worked its way north and east. The attempt was to conquer all of Britain. They had to settle for about 2/3 in the end. But when they settled for 2/3, they really dug in and made sure that they did everything they could to preserve it. Why is Britain so important to them? It could have something to do with the reason why crop circles appear in this country more than any other. Now, this is a big subject, I can't go into it in too much detail. There's a huge number of stone monuments here as well, much date back into pre-Illuminati times. Maria Wheatley and several other researchers have covered that in detail. But some people say there's something special about Britain in terms of the spiritual nature of this planet. Some people use the term the heart chakra of the world. And the Romans knew this. At the highest level, the Illuminati, the secret societies within the Roman Empire, they knew this. Not your average Roman, but the people governing the Roman Empire knew it. And they knew they had to hold on to Britain because they needed it for occult purposes. Which is why they went to so much effort building this huge wall, which is still there today, to keep Britain safe, to keep it for their purposes. Now this is Queen Boudica. Now she is the queen of the Iceni tribe in what is today Norfolk. Now she led a rebellion in AD 60 against the Roman Empire, which almost ended up with the Romans being kicked out of Britain and losing that heart chakra of the world. If that had happened, if it had succeeded, we'd be living in a very different world today. It's possible you could have had 2016 in AD 116 or something, something like that. But it's a very emotive story, and I find it very moving. Perhaps because I'm British, and we British have a bit of a fetish for heroic failures. I'm Welsh, yeah, that's included. That's still included, I think. That's still included, yeah. But the lesson of the Boudica Rebellion is very important. It's very easy to lose hope in this world because the Illuminati seem so powerful. They seem to have so much control. They have infinite financial resources. They have the ability to control people's minds. They seem to be able to just... You'd think that a society, a secret society that powerful, with that much control, could just do what it wanted. And when you listen to some people in the conspirasphere, that's the impression I get with people when Emlyn-Jones talks about the Illuminati, what they're doing, look at what they're doing. They've done this and they've done that. It's very easy to think, well, against such a powerful enemy, there can be no victory. We're just puny little insects. We can be crushed underfoot very easily. But no. What the Boudica Rebellion teaches us is that the Illuminati, the Cabal, the deep state, are not all powerful. They are not omniscient, they are not supernatural gods which can just do whatever they like. They are fallible, they are mortal. They die, they make mistakes, and sometimes they completely lose power. And I think they've done it. Such an instance has actually happened in recent years, and I'll explain about that in a minute. But this is the method, this is the power structure that they have at the moment, where you have here the people at the bottom, just masses and masses of people, the majority of people, more than 99%. Above you have here governments, intelligence community, military, police, courts, prisons, corporations there. Above that you have the mega corporations, the oil companies, the energy. Pharmaceutical industries, very, very appropriate that. And you have the banking system above that, that's the financial control system. And you have the think tanks, Trilateral Commission, CFR, Bilderberg Group. At this point, really, the public world departs from the secret world. This is what this is the borderlands between what we know of, what we're told about, and what we don't know. Because above that, you have the Committee of 300, which was discovered by John Coleman, the researcher, discovered this. Not to be confused with Vernon Coleman, the man in the armchair. But his book, the Committee of 300, I recommend. The Committee of 300 is governed by the Council of 13. These are the 13 bloodlines of the Illuminati, of which the Habsburgs appears to be the dominant one. The head of the Habsburg Illuminati bloodline is, who do you think that is? Any ideas?
Queen Beatrice.
Queen.
The Queen. Queen Elizabeth II is the head of the Habsburg dynasty. They're called Windsor, but that's not their real...
I thought which was the Saxe-Coburg.
It's all part of the Habsburgs. The Habsburgs include like most of the European lines, the German royal family and the Russians before they were exterminated. And that's interestingly, that's an interesting lesson. If you're part of these bloodlines, if it's necessary for the agenda, you get thrown to the wolves as well, like Tsar Nicholas II did in Russia.
I was going to say, because we're led to believe that the Habsburgs, they didn't have a kind of next in line, so they just died out. And I mean, I think it's a good way to operate when people think that, you know, it doesn't exist anymore. So
it's still live and well, it's still going strong. The world monarch is probably Queen Elizabeth. I think she's the most powerful person in the world who's currently on display. But you see, above that you have the eye, the panopticon. Now, I believe that is not actually, that does not represent any person. That represents a malevolent supernatural force. We can quibble over what that actually is.
What's the pinball?
Well, that's a good question. I think that's a long debate. We can quibble over exactly what that entails. But brace yourself. The conspiracy theorists are coming. No, Boromir. I don't know if Boromir actually is a conspiracy theorist. He doesn't come across like that in the story, but it's interesting to think that there is resistance to this new world order. And like Queen Boudica, I think we have a chance of, more than an even chance of winning in the long run. There is some kind of, it's called teleological, in other words, there is a natural arc of the universe. It seems to have some kind of ethical point to it. And that we're on the side of the angels, not the devils. Yeah, that's what I believe. And so you get figures like David Icke, who's been very influential on me. He's still going. I still watch what he has to say. I don't hang on his every word, but I don't hang on anyone's every word. He's a very, very good man. Former frontline camera whore of the Broken Biscuit Corporation, sitting there and presenting Grandstand, who had a spiritual awakening and basically decided to dedicate his life to the causes of good rather than mind control. Alex Jones, I met him actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was photographed at the 2013.
Is that Bill Hicks?
No, no, it's not. It's not. No, and the Earth is not flat.
did he make frogs turn gay?
He's not he. No. I think it's chemicals did. But that's at the 2013 Bilderberg Fringe Festival. I'm somewhere in that crowd.
Is that what fact?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know if you got to that. I don't know if any of you got to that. It was very, very good.
Well, he's inside that. He's a show.
Oh, I'm going to... You've anticipated what I'm coming to in a minute. Oops. The 9/11 Truth Movement. Now, this came out after 9/11. Now, people often say, well, that didn't work, did it? Because everyone still believes the official story of 9/11. But, apparently, according to... I'll come to this later on, but according to surveys, people don't necessarily believe the official story of 9/11. And the actual effects of that doubt, even though they're not apparent, if you switch on the TV or open a newspaper, may yet have undreamt of effects.
The US media has just been voted the least trustworthy news corporations in the world.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. So we shouldn't actually... It's a bit too late to do a defeat lament if you're in the 9/11 Truth Movement. Definitely. I think this movement has actually had some good, has done some good. But you know, this is where I have to get controversial. So excuse me, right, I'm going to have to. If we're going to preserve the pillars of civilization, we have to behave like civilized people. And unfortunately, there's people within the conspiracy sphere, I believe, are undermining it by their immaturity and their own selfishness and their lack of commitment to those pillars of civilization. Right, hands up who's a shell. Richard, I've got you going, he's going to get you.
Sorry, I thought you said who needs a shit.
You should have gone before we started. Right, hands up who's been accused of being a shell.
Yeah,
You get a few more. Usually, yeah, when I was at bases, like a lot more now. Right, hands up. Keep your hands up if you've been accused of being a shell, and the person accusing you has actually presented proper evidence. No, yeah. I did this at bases, and every hand went down. The number of times people say this person's a shill. A shill, by the way, if you don't know, is a government agent working within the truth movement, and that does happen. That actually does happen.
What about Anna Greaves? Is she?
Well, this is a question we've got to ask ourselves, and I think we can provide a proper solution. But yeah, I mean, I've had people say, "Oh, you're a shill, Ben. You're a shill." I've had people calling me a shill. I used to present a program called Planet X Radio, and it was a proper radio show. It was online, but it was also went live on the Liverpool local radio network. And someone accused it of being an MI5 front. They said, that Planet X, it's a front to MI5. And I said, how do you know? Where's your evidence? Your website looks a bit like mine. So where's your evidence? That's it! Your website looks a bit like mine, and that means you work for MI5. And I thought, right, okay, talk to you later. What you find is when these shill accusations break out, I mean, it's always the way, you go back through the Facebook comments, and you find out that the person doing the accusing and the person being accused had some kind of personal dispute. And they've aggrandised that into some kind of fantasy, where the person is working for the company, they're a shill. I know because I don't like them. So I suggest we try to sort this out like adults, like civilised people, by introducing some form of due process. Someone mentioned a name just now, who was it? Anna Breeze. Yeah. Okay, supposing you believe someone's a shill, like Anna Breeze is a shill. You present it to a shill tribunal. We could set one up. We could have a judge and jury, and there could be a prosecutor. I'm serious, you know, a prosecutor, defence, and it would be done in a controlled manner, like a proper court. It wouldn't be obviously it would have no legislative power. It wouldn't be. It would just be an independent legal system where we could sort these things out once and for all. And I have a feeling that if this ever became popular, the number of shill accusations would plummet once people realised that they had to
get called out.
Yeah, they are going to get called out if they make fake accusations. We found it's really, I think, has become a necessity because we have this kind of medieval justice at the moment. This kind of ordeal by hashtag, where it's like it's
like groupthink kind of mentality as well.
Yeah, I myself have been called a shill, but I've also been denounced by other people for defending people who've been accused of shillhood. Or, for example, a witness to a UFO event had a personal fallout with a friend of his. His friend started posting lies about him online, saying he'd made up his story. I checked out it factually, found out it was a fabrication, and said so. And I found, and before you know it, I suddenly looked at people blocking me, unfriending me. It's just this person attacked me, and everyone just wanted to drop me because it was just easier and quicker. A shill tribunal would solve these problems. Because this is where I don't know how many people have seen this. This is The Cosmic Hoax. Have any of you seen Greer's latest film? Alright, it's Dr. Stephen Greer, his messianic royal muscliness, has produced another.
He's got nice muscles.
Yes, he is indeed. So that's all that matters, isn't it?
He's got lovely muscles.
Yeah.
And he knows it, and that's all that matters. He's produced The Cosmic Hoax. Now, I've mixed feelings about these various little videos he brings out, these movies. They're often quite high budget. Unusually, he's launched this straight onto onto free viewing sites. Normally, he charges quite a lot of money for people to watch them. I have mixed feelings about them actually. This one is definitely his worst. It's full of what I can only call wanton slander. He attacks various people in the UFO community, accuses them of being shills. Again, with little or no evidence. It's just it's like, well, I know what's going on, and I think these people are shills, and what I say goes because I'm Greer. And for example, now I'm not saying that people like Lou Elizondo, Christopher Mellon, Tom DeLonge, I'm not saying we should believe every word they say and just accept everything they say by any means. But at the same time, there's no evidence for Greer to make the accusation he does of those people. The same, and it gets much worse because he attacks Leslie Kean in a way that I think is contemptible. Leslie Kean has been in this business almost as long as Greer, and a lot of what we know I've learned in the last few years about the government's relationship to the UFO phenomenon has been found out by her. And it's thanks to her and Ralph Blumenthal that we know all the things that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Because as Richard said, this is what we could be facing. And it could be that the end of the world will not be, or before some geological catastrophe or some cosmic disaster occurs to us, we could destroy it ourselves by allowing, through our own decadence, through our own stupidity, and by allowing the Illuminati a free rein to do whatever they want on this planet. So, if anyone wants to inform me of anyone they think is a shill, I don't want to hear about it. When we've dealt with this, I'll write everything I know. I'll expose everyone I know. I'll say, who's a shill, who's not a shill, who did what to whom, you know, who's the king of the castle, who's the dirty rascal. Until then, I hope you will understand if I reprioritise somewhat.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is there any hope? That's the question. Is there? Now, the answer, of course, is yes. I'm not here to... I wouldn't be here giving you a doom and gloom session, because there'd be no point. I'm going to explain to you where I think the hope lies. Now, Richard mentioned this. Now, this was... I don't know how many of you were involved when this happened. 2012. This is the December the 21st, 2012 was the day the Mayan calendar long count changed from one cycle to another. It's over 5,000 years. It began on August the 14th, 3114 BC, ended AD 2012, 21st of December. And I remember, how many of you remember that day? Did you do anything for that day?
Meditated.
Yeah. Well, my partner at the time, her mother died, so we had that to deal with. But we did manage to do a meditation at the 11:11 moment. That was the moment of the solstice. Now, there was all kinds of... A lot of people had all kinds of ideas of what was going to happen on this day. As Richard pointed out, nothing happened on that day. It was pretty much a normal day. It was a normal winter's day. Not a lot happened.
There was some beautiful astronomy happening that day.
Was there?
That's what it was all about. The
Oh.
astronomy that was happening. That
Well, there was the
particular
sun
day.
in this galactic core. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was very interesting. Yeah, that was all part of the astronomy of the Mayans. But what's interesting is that everyone had this sort of idea that this would be the day when everything changed. We'd all experience some kind of spiritual epiphany, and we'd wake up like the priests of High Atlantis, or there'd be a disaster. There'd be fire and brimstone raining down from the sky, and rather like that film, that Roland Emmerich film, 2012, We Were Warned. Have any of you seen that?
Yeah, I quite liked it. It was alright.
I watched it, and
It's the most
I
depressing.
finished watching it. I went and I looked in the mirror and I said, Ben, you're 2 hours older, mate.
I'll never get that time back.
You and I have a very different taste in movies. I thought it was appalling. It was absolutely appalling. It's about basically a situation where in 2012, on the very day this happened, there's a massive instant crustal displacement which causes global disaster, and the Jeff Bezos and everyone else in this world, they hide themselves away. But they're good guys, really, who let everyone else into the arcs, these
Yeah,
ships.
they need some
got.
bloody coercion to let them in, though, don't they?
Yeah, but it's because they're good guys. Eventually, they did. Yeah. Not the best thing Hollywood's ever produced, and it doesn't produce much that's good. But you see, I think what happened was something did happen that day, but it was something that we didn't notice, something not perceptible. I think possibly a switch was flipped at a very deep, etheric level of this Earth and of the universe, which, even though it was unnoticeable to us on that particular day, would eventually manifest certain features which were. And I'll come to those in a minute. But funnily enough, the 2012 phenomenon has occurred when lots of other massive transformations are due to take place. This is in 2025, not long, it's 4 years away now. I had to correct that because that was a slide I used previously. In just 4 years, it will be the year 2025 when the Kali Yuga ends. Now, this is the Hindu calendar. The Hindu calendar is actually very similar to the Mayan one. It consists of numerous cycles of ages. We're currently in the Kali Yuga. Now, Kali is the goddess of the underworld in Indian mythology. And it's replaced by what's known as the Arya or the Satya Yuga. That means the age of nobility, the golden age. And that will happen in 2025. We don't know the exact date, only the year. But it's odd that that's happened. This has occurred just 13 years after the Mayan calendar long count changes over. Which is interesting because at the time the Mayan civilization existed, they and the Indians apparently had no contact. They hadn't met each other, apparently.
I disagree.
Yeah, I do too. But it's interesting that they've come up with the same dates for their calendar cycles, seem to emerge around the same dates. But it's not just, it could be because this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Yes! This musical from the 60s, Hair, about the hippie culture. Shame Rhonda's not here, it really is.
Oh, yeah.
The age of Aquarius, is the song goes, when the moon is in the 7th house and Jupiter aligns with Mars, was peace shall steer the planets and love will rule the stars. which it's actually in astrological terms that doesn't make much sense, but it fits in nicely with the song. It talks about an idea that something's going to happen which will essentially create some kind of utopian world, a solution to all the world's problems, an end to evil, and that we shall essentially attain a higher state of civilization from which we fell, according to mythology all over the world. We fell from a state of grace to a state of barbarism, which may tie in with what Richard was talking about in mythological form. The most best known of these is Adam and Eve, and you mentioned that.
The story.
Yeah, not that there was literally two people in a garden who ate an apple and there was a talking snake, but it's symbolic of both historical facts or prehistorical facts, and also the relationship between humans and the divine, by whichever way you define that, the word divine. You don't have to be a Christian or anything like that, but along with the mythology of the fall of man has always become the idea that there will be a rise of man, a return to grace, and we can actually re-enter Eden, essentially, in a symbolic form. And the Age of Aquarius is one of these. Now, but the Age of Aquarius actually happens every 26,000 years. It's part of the cycle of retrograde precession, a very, very slow turning of ages. They're called ages, but they're basically simply where the sun appears on the zodiac at a particular point, at a particular time of the year. And of course it does every year anyway, but things that, where the sun appears at a certain date during the year, moves slightly on the zodiac, very, very slowly, over 26,000 years.
Yeah, it moves backwards in conjunction to the zodiac, which moves forward.
Exactly. So we're currently in the age, we're currently either in the age of Aquarius or Pisces, so it's gone backwards. However, what's interesting is astrologers can't agree exactly when the age of Aquarius starts. Like Helen Sewell, she says it won't happen till about 100 years from now. Others said it happened sometime around 1900, and we're already in the age of Aquarius. Oh. But either way, the idea is that this has some kind of effect on the world and on people, which creates a better society. Now, this is interesting. The second coming. Now, I'm not a Christian. But I'm intrigued by the idea of a second coming. I've actually done an entire lecture, which I've never performed, interestingly, called Apocalypse Soon, which deals with this sort of thing. Now, the idea of the second coming of Jesus is a part of this archetype of returning to grace, of apocalypse, which apocalypse just means revelation. It just means uncovering, unveiling, exposure, disclosure. And this is all a part of that. Now, the odd thing, the unique thing about the Jesus story is that there's no predicted date. A lot of people think they know the dates. Harold Camping, for example. Many people in within the evangelical Protestant tradition of North America sometimes come up with dates for when it's going to happen. There's an awful lot of fuss about that. But no one knows, apparently. I think the Bible, I think it's in the book of Isaiah. Not the Son, not the Holy Spirit, but only the Father shall know the date of the coming of the Messiah. And presumably the Messiah's return in Christian tradition. I think
it's actually Christ consciousness that we're actually moving into now as we're ascending. The Christ consciousness is coming back.
As I said, yeah, the idea of our relationship with the divine, you can actually take any definition you want of that, and whatever you just doesn't have to be Orthodox Christianity or Orthodox any other religion. But it's just an intriguing idea, like you said. It could be symbolic of some kind of consciousness returning. In which case, if it is literal, then I'll just have to. I'm intrigued. I think I'd be quite interested and quite pleased if it happened literally. I'd just have to apologise and say, look, I'm sorry about not going to church every Sunday and things like that. But that's just me, I'm afraid. That's all I can do is apologise. But yeah, I think it's more likely to be symbolic of what you were just saying. I think it's more likely to be that. Now, this is interesting. David Icke, not 2012, 2016. This is what I believe. However, David Icke did this in an interview where he predicted 2016 would be the big year in 2008. I've actually got the video. If anyone wants to see it, I know where the video is. I haven't downloaded it. I've got it downloaded at home. But he actually said this. Now, this is interesting because I believe that whatever happened on December the 21st, 2012, it did eventually generate change. Palpable, real world, three-dimensional world change. But it took a few years. I think 2016, this year is the big year when everything changed, and we're still feeling the effects of 2016 now. Despite the fact that things seem to have gone downhill since then, and the Illuminati have gathered, have sort of regrouped, and they've launched a counter-offensive, what happened in 2016 has not been undone. Now, two things happened. This is very interesting. I predict between June and November 2016, thereabouts, the Illuminati completely lost control of this entire world. Two things happened which they really didn't want. Trump becoming the president. Donald Trump was never meant to be US president. They went to an awful lot of effort to get him out of the White House last year. Britain was also not supposed to leave the European Union. There were huge attempts, once that referendum happened, to try and undo it, to try and reverse the decision. Some very disreputable things happened, actually. It's a very ugly period of our history, I would say. Not all of you will agree with me on this. In fact, I know people who say Trump's just another insider, Ben, and Brexit was meant to happen. It was all part of this conspiracy, Ben. Can't you see it? Indeed, there's like Neil Sanders, for example. I think you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
Has he been on this platform?
No. Yeah.
All right. He's an interesting chap actually in many ways, but he gets some things wrong. He believes that this is just a big part of this eternal cycle of rich guys, you know, dominating poor guys, and these two are just inside. It was all organised by Cambridge Analytica, and there's nothing significant about these events at all. I couldn't agree less. What happened here was highly significant, indeed. And indeed, I think it's still going on today. Now, more and more, I was talking to Karen about this. You still see people with Q posters going around. People with like a Q, and they have a Q. This guy's got a Q around his neck. At Trump rallies, they still carry these. Now, the QAnon is, again, Neil Sanders says it was just people having fun on 4chan. It got out of hand. Again, I don't think so. It's a long, complicated reason why I don't think that. Though, what happened was, of course, why a lot of people say, well, Q wasn't real, is because, of course, Biden's in the White House, isn't he? So that's not part of the plan, trust the plan and all that sort of thing. And that's true. That's because the plan didn't work. But that doesn't mean it's all over. It doesn't mean that's the end of everything just because the plan didn't work. I think Q's still out there. Hi, Dawn.
But is the plan working? Because they've got evidence of the fraud, haven't they, for the election?
Yes.
So is this not about just trying to wake as many people up?
It is, yes, and it has having both effects. Realise that the very fact we even know about it, so many people know about it, and I'll give you some very encouraging information in a minute, which indicates just how deep the awareness and distrust of authority has gone. But this is an act of electoral fraud in the world's primary democracy. It was there for everyone to see. Today, to this very day, you put on a video of Joe Biden talking, or trying to talk. I think you can see his lips moving. It's CGI. Hey, Dawn.
He was on live last night, and he basically said that all the deaths and hospitalisation in America now is the unvaccinated.
Yeah.
And he's sorted it out. The ones that won't get the vaccine, it's because they can't afford to take the time off work, so he's going to pay them all $100 each.
Yeah, the US government, yeah. Dawn, I don't know how many of you at home heard that, but Dawn has just said that the US administration is now going to pay people $100 to have the vaccine. Now that shows how desperate they are, yeah. But the fact that Biden is, whenever he goes on his videos, he has like he has minuscule views for a US president. He has the comments all underneath saying, faker, lies, things like that. Numerous downvotes. Trump's videos are really popular. He fills entire stadiums still with people. His profile is much higher than Biden's. However, Joe Biden is supposedly the most popular US president in history.
He wasn't actually inaugurated, so he's not president.
Yeah, exactly. That's this whole point is he's not the real president. The polls are all rigged. He should be looking really cheerful now, dancing up and down Pennsylvania Avenue, waving to his adoring fans, and there'd be millions of them cheering him in the streets. Because the US politics, which was notoriously split down the middle, came right over for Biden. People really hated Trump, but they wanted to get rid of him. They got this wonderful wonderful, fit young guy, you know, Biden, you know. Instead they've got this decrepit old guy, can't even climb a flight of stairs. The guy, he should be in an old folks home.
Don't you think it's all just a show, though?
Yeah, it's...
Yeah.
Of course, but you see, it's a show that no longer has any credibility. And I'll come to that later because it's very important. The show used to work. People used to believe it more than they do. You may think, oh, people just, I know this person, he just believes everything he sees on TV. Those people are getting fewer in number, believe it or not, even though we all know people like that. Now, funny thing is, something else happened in December 2017, during the Trump period. This was not long after this hiatus in Illuminati rule. In December 2017, it was announced that there were videos circulating taken by the US Navy of what they call unidentified aerial phenomena. Now, I don't know how many of you remember where you were when this happened on the 17th of December. Yeah, it was December 2017. I remember when I was, this is where I was at that moment. I was doing a show for Miles Johnston with Colin Wilford. And Miles, we were actually in the middle of just talking about something else, and Miles just broke in and he says, Ben, have you heard? Have you heard? There's these videos going around, it's proof of UFOs. I said, really? Well, blimey. Well, it wasn't quite that simple as proof of UFOs, but this is something that's never happened before. If you're into UFOs, then this is the biggest event ever, I think, in the history of that level of research. It means that for the first time in 70 years, the way UFOs were portrayed in the media changed. The official ridicule and denial of the Twining memo, the Cutler Twining memo, went out the window. Now, we weren't exactly sure what was going to happen. 2018, nothing really much went on, and I thought, well, maybe this is just a one-off and it's going to go away. But in 2019, May 2019, US Department of Defense confirms the ATIP footage. That's the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification, confirms the existence of the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program. This ran from 2007 to 2012. It actually carried on afterwards, but I'll come to that in a minute. Because a lot of people were saying at the time, it doesn't exist. You know, John Greenwald, of the Black Vault. Now, he's an interesting guy because he's not a skeptic, but he's very cautious. He's right on the trailing edge of the I want to believe mentality. And we need people like that who's level-headed. And he said, well, maybe this doesn't exist. But it turns out it did exist, and what's more, in September of that year, this footage was confirmed as US Navy, because at the time people were saying it's some guys concocted this in their basement. They confirmed it as US Navy. The gimbal, tic-tac, really, really remarkable thing. Then in January 2020, the US DoD admitted more evidence exists. Now this is quite something, because what we've seen is just a taster. Now they're not declassifying much. They have declassified a few more things, but a lot of what's being held back, actually, they actually said they're not holding it back because it's UAPs. They're holding it back simply because there's so much evidence now in terms of telemetry, electronic support measures, radar logs, and things like that, that it's giving away the capabilities of these ships, the ships of the fleet. Thanks, Maureen, of the USS Nimitz and its sister ships, all the other ships of the fleet, which are closely guarded secrets. So obviously there's so much evidence of these existences that it's actually to reveal it would actually affect the security of these vessels. Quite something, that, isn't it? And in April 2020 the videos were declassified, which is kind of like shutting the stable door after the horse is bolted. However, I think there's a reason why they did this, and it's a very important moment, because David Fravor, the pilot who came forward, along with several other people from the ships, the other pilots and other sailors on the ships, it was just a slight possibility they might be prosecuted for breaching of security oaths, because this was classified information they were talking about. However, this I think was you could call it a nudge in the ribs, saying, "Don't worry, you're going to be okay." Because now this essentially means that they're not going to prosecute him or anyone else who talks about this sort of thing. They're going to be okay, legally. So this was a very important moment, this declassification. July 2020, ATIP, it turns out the ATIP was not closed in 2012. What happened was it simply changed its name, it rebranded. If you can call a secretive organisation rebranding. It went from being called the Advanced Aerial Threat Identification Program at the Defence Intelligence Agency, and moved to the it became the Unidentified Aerial Phenomenon Task Force and was moved to the Department of Defence. It went to public just recently, actually, quite soon, like recently ago. So basically, all the personalities moved over. There was a couple of the personnel haven't, and one was called Lou Elizondo, who I mentioned earlier. He's a former ATIP official who is actually speaking publicly. He wants UFO secrecy to come out, unless he's a shill. Well, let's put him in front of the tribunal, I'd say.
About does Bob Bigelow have anything to come into that anyway? Huh?
Are you reading my mind?
Oh, right, okay.
Yeah, Bob Bigelow of Bigelow Aerospace. Of course, he's our George Soros. He's this rich philanthropist he's made his fortune and he's worth several billion, and he funds investigations and things like that into the paranormal and UFOs. He very famously opened up investigation into the Skinwalker Ranch through the NITS. Yeah, that was very interesting. He's also been involved in ATIP. It turns out he was involved as a contractor to ATIP, studying physical evidence, physical remains that have been found, what was it that Giorgio Tsakoulas of Ancient Aliens says? It's not aliens. I'm not saying it's aliens, but it's aliens. Well, there's a lot of contradictory kind of subtext to this, like it might be aliens. No, it's not aliens, but it might be aliens. Things like that. You see a lot of this sort of thing in these sort of world. Now, this was actually gathered by Anthony Bragalia, a ufologist. He put in a Freedom of Information Act to the DIA for ATIP footage, for ATIP material about Bob Bigelow's project. What sort of debris did they find? Well, this is physical remains that could come from extraterrestrial sources. In other words, pieces of a flying saucer, for example. What they discovered was they wrote back and told Bragalia there is a 154-page document we have. Only 11 pages we can release to you. And which, of course, is a very, very small proportion. But those 11 pages are interesting enough. They refer to something called nitinol. Now, I don't know how much you guys know about chemistry, but it's reading them, you probably learn an awful lot that these have remarkable properties in terms of electrical conductivity, and the fact that they've been described as being very flexible indeed. They have this material, nitinol, it's a kind of metallic material, but it has the flexibility of rubber. You can fold it and fold it again and fold it again. When you release the pressure, it returns to its original shape. Does that sound familiar?
Memory metal.
Does it sound familiar?
Sounds like a spaceship.
That is exactly what Dr. Jesse Marcel Jr. said was the properties of the material. He was shown by his father, Major Jesse Marcel of the Roswell Army Air Force, in July of 1947. Could nitinol be this long sought after material that came from the Roswell crash? You see, it's really weird because these 11 pages don't talk about the origin of this substance at all. You'd think that would be the first question everyone would ask. Where does it come from? Who on earth manufactures such material? I know a lady called Irina Scott. She's written some really good books about this sort of thing. She was involved in investigating this stuff at the Battelle Memorial Institute. And she said she was trying to melt it. She had to find a really hot forge in New Mexico, ironically, to melt this stuff because its temperature of melting was so high. Yet the elements are... she knew what the elements were, copper, titanium and things like that. These things are common throughout the universe. You find them in distant galaxies through spectroscopy. However, they can actually tell from its isotopic ratio that this did not originate on Earth. They found the same thing with the implants. The official story thing is these are meteors, but maybe
It's
they're
not
not.
just that, it's the isotopes and the way the atoms are put together are completely different to how we'd kind of arrange things on the planet. So yeah.
So when people give you all these facts and they say, well, is it aliens? And you're just met with a kind of... You used to be met with, well, don't be silly, don't be stupid, of course it's not aliens. But now you're just met with a kind of silence and a kind of little wink and a nod. I would love to see the other 143 pages that are too hot for FOIA. Now this is for the Omaha incident, the USS Omaha. Also, some material has been leaked off there. Jeremy Corbell is in touch with some of the crew. And the crew members, obviously inspired by David Fravor and the other US Navy whistleblowers, have decided to start leaking information, knowing that they probably will not receive very severe penalties. This is actually not that interesting, I must say, this particular image. this is one of the weaker pieces of the links in the chain, which the skeptics have jumped upon because they say, oh, that's just an aeroplane, it's got navigation lights. And I agree. However, that same ship also has another piece of footage which comes from the radar display of that ship, where you see numerous objects appearing around it, and you hear the sailors calling out their bearings and range and course, and things like that, like firing solutions and stuff like that. Now, I can't prove what this, but you see here something very interesting. The big drop, 2017. Now this is December 2017. Boom! This big red arrow indicates when the big ATIP revelation dropped. That in itself was not revolutionary, and I accept that, but it's very, very interesting indeed, because then later on, nothing happens to 2018, and suddenly you get another one, and later on another. They seem to be spaced out. I can't prove this, but there could be structure. These red arrows represent the release of the various materials I'm talking about, the various information, the bombshells. I can't prove this, but it could be some kind of structure here, as if there's a schedule. These releases are being scheduled. I'll come to that in a minute, but I'll come back to that actually. No, I won't. No, yeah, this is all relevant. This is a Muamua. Well, no one knows what it is, but it's something that came through our solar system from outside it. This artist's impression it's rudely known as the turd picture for obvious reasons. It's an artist's impression. This is not a photograph of a Muamua. No one ever got close enough to a Muamua to get a clear photo like this of it. The best photo we have of it was through a telescope. It's just a pink dot. This artist has clearly depicted this object, very long, thin object, very unusual to get an object in space like that, specific to look like a natural object. See, so it's got no structure, no real organised structure, it's just rough, it's like an asteroid. And that is, I think, an assumption on their part that it's a natural object. Now, Professor Avi Loeb of Harvard University, he's the head of astronomy and astrophysics, he's just brought out a book called Extraterrestrial, which is really good.
He's really put his neck on the line here, hasn't he?
A man in his position, he's got a very, very senior position. He staked his reputation and career on this being an artificial object. He says he's been powered by the pressure of sunlight. In other words, it's a solar sail, which indicates that it's artificial. It's not a lump of rock in space. It's long, thin. It has light. It's designed to be moved by solar wind. Now that's obviously it's too far away to see, unfortunately, but he believes that this is just one of many, and if now we know what to look for, he'll be able to find others. So he started something called the Galileo Project, indicating that Galileo was a man. He's a pioneer of science. In 1633, he was placed under house arrest for daring to say things like, "Oh, you know, the Earth goes around the sun, and the Earth's not the centre of the universe. You know that, don't you? I proved it. Have a look through the telescopes." And the Pope went, "No, I shall not look through your telescope." Oh, well, it's sheer ignorance. It's like the Planet of the Apes, where the ape screws up the paper dart. You remember that scene? Nonsense. Doesn't even try it. If you're so sure something's wrong, why don't you try it? Look and see if you're wrong. If the person's wrong, you'll be able to prove them wrong, but they won't even look.
Academic ignorance.
Well, you know, Avi Loeb is essentially saying that the academic establishment has become like the church of the Renaissance. And he's saying that because poor old Galileo, he spent the last 9 years of his life locked up in his own home, just for saying the truth. Now this is interesting. This is Richard mentioned this. This is Tynemouth actually. This photograph was taken at Tynemouth, and here you see sedimentary layers of rock which you find on ancient seabeds and large lakes. And you see here there's a crab or a spider crawling up the rock. You see it there? Do you see that there?
That thing of Alien.
The thing is, this is not actually Tynemouth. This is Mars. This is the planet. This photograph was taken on the planet Mars.
Supposedly.
Well, you've seen Rich Planet, haven't you? When he does in Rich Planet, he says that these are all fake and these are all done on Earth anyway.
I don't think that's Devon Island.
Yeah, but the thing is, if this is Mars, supposing that is Mars, what is this thing there?
Even if it's Devon Island, what the bloody hell?
Well, you see, something like that doesn't live on Devon Island either. In fact, very little lives on Devon Island. It's like quite a bit of a wasteland. But isn't that like? This is. I just can't help but the feeling with the Muamua and Mars and revelations about Mars like this. Is it possible that the people are being put in some kind of frame of mind? Are we being given little tasters of information to change our minds, very slowly and carefully change our minds. That's this is the problem, because we could be, I'll come to this in a minute, but it could be that we are, because we're so mind controlled, this is the only way they can do it. It could be, going back to Mars just briefly, could it be that the perseverance, there's this new thing on Mars now, there's two, there's one called the Zhang, which is Chinese, and there's another one called Perseverance, which is American. And they're both very, very sophisticated. They have little rovers, and the Perseverance has a little helicopter called Ingenuity, sorry. And it's produced, we've got complete unique things from those probes, such as the first motion pictures from another planet, the first video, the first sounds recorded on Mars. I mean, there's some on Venus as well. First sounds on Mars. It's like people's attention is being focused on Mars, and it could be at some point they will discover life on Mars. What do you reckon? Why? That's the question. At the same time, we have some interesting people speaking out. This is Helen Sharman. Now, she's the first British person in space. She's also a highly qualified chemist. So she's a person very expert in science and also of extraordinary historical significance. She believes in aliens. She says it's possible that the aliens are here right now and we just can't see them. Extraordinary. Now, TV programs, as I said earlier, are appalling. They're really dire. What's my least favourite? It's hard to pick one, I must say, because they're all so appalling. But possibly Loose Women from the Broken Biscuit Corporation. It's a horrible mixture of shallow tabloid gossip and very toxic feminist propaganda. But even the filthiest dung heap sometimes has a jewel in it, and Kim Wilde, I think, is quite a jewel. But you know what, I admire her now even more than I used to, because she is spoken out about her UFO experience. She's spoken about her UFO experience. She said she saw one from her back garden. She was out in the garden. Her husband saw it too. He went in to get a camera. And
Robbie Williams spoke out the same time as Kim.
Right, he's another one, yeah. And again, he faced tabloid ridicule. Yeah. Roy Williams actually not only spoke out about his beliefs of UFOs, but also his own contact experiences, which she's only just started to discuss. Now, she was risking a hell of a lot appearing on this TV show talking about this.
Well, I don't know, the only work she had was that chocolate advert.
Oh, well, maybe, yeah, but you know, I kind of thinking that maybe she's talking about this because, like Helen Sharman, maybe because it's no longer quite as taboo as it used to be. The taboo is disappearing. And this is a product of, this isn't a cause, this is an effect of what we're talking about. Storm Area 51. Now this was a meme that was created by this person who is like a stereotype of everything we are meant to be. Some long-haired little gimp sitting in his mother's basement. Just decided to create this thing. They can't stop all of us. Let's see them aliens. And he invited everyone to gather outside the borders of Area 51 and then run towards it with your arms behind your back. It's called Naruto running. I'm not less than 15 years old, so I don't know what that means. But they basically run like that towards the base, and they can't stop. If millions of people do it, they won't be able to stop it, and you will go in and we'll see the aliens. Now, this is what's remarkable is that this page, the page you created, had 2 million members within a couple of weeks. It was exploded. It went viral. It is almost like he, without knowing it, he inadvertently hit he really truly got his finger on the pulse. And the very fact that it became so popular indicates a massive shift in public opinion. Now, as it happened, the police were called to deal with this when it came out, a huge police mobilisation. The Storm Area 51 never happened, luckily, and I'm glad, because it would have ended in carnage. The camo dudes, these security guards who guard the base, the perimeter, if they saw people running towards them, they would open fire and people would get killed. Not only that, but people would probably die of thirst and dehydration and heat stroke, which is running across the desert. But what happened was people did go there, but there was just a festival, like a little conference and music festival called Alien Stock, which hopefully will become an annual event now the lockdown's over, hopefully. But this is just a sign of the times, I think. And of course we have the Space Force. there's a new organisation in town, a new military unit, a new military outfit called the Space Force, the six-armed branch of the armed forces. For the first time since the Defence Act of 1947, the US military now has a new force.
Where do I sign?
Yeah, if you're job hunting, actually, they are recruiting. They've got a .mil website. If you're job hunting, you fancy this sort of thing, it might suit you. It's you become a guardian. They're called guardians. These people. They didn't know what to call them, but they decided to call Space Force members guardians.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes. Would you like to know more? Yes. That's right. It's this is interesting. This is the US Space Force Charter. This is very interesting. To provide freedom of operation for the US in, from and to space, provide prompt and sustained space operations, protect the interests of the US in space. This is the interesting bit. Deter aggression in, from and to space, conduct space operations. Deter aggression from space. What kind of aggression is coming from space? There are nations with a space presence. In fact, there are other nations that have a space force. However, from space could mean it could be referring to aliens.
Ben,
10
tea breeze.
or tea. Yeah, I've got a bit more. Okay, shall we take a break now?
It's up to you.
Yeah.
I'll
Do you want a cup of tea, guys? 'Cause
Yeah.
yeah. All right.
Cup of
Sure.
tea?
Yeah. Sure, Maureen. I'll take a break.
No, you tell me when.
Now's fine. Well, I've got because I've got probably another half
That
hour.
desperate man, that desperate.
Yeah, sure. Guys, take a break.
I think they should get an anthem, Space Force.
They do. They have an
Like,
official anthem.
use the Star Trek theme or something.
They did like a ceremony where they swore in the commander and everything, and it was like they did have an anthem. They sang it and everything.
I'd have been shooting for the Star Wars anthem. You sound Star Trek, so you'd have to.
Right, so we're ready for part 2.
Yeah.
Right, Ben, are you ready to record?
Yeah, it's running. It should be recording.
Is it now? Is it now?
I'll have a look. I just checked it. It was. So.
It's a shill. It's live streaming to the government.
Oh my goodness! Which one? There was a shill in here then. Yeah.
Right, part 2. Right, back for part 2.
Yeah.
Is it going to get any better, Ben? Or is there a hope?
Is there a good ending?
You'll have to wait and see. Have to wait and see. You'll soon
The
know.
suspense is killing me.
That's the idea. It's
I'll leave
exciting.
you with Ben.
Right. Yeah. Where was I? Yes. Service guarantees citizenship. That's right. The Space Force. Now, this is very strange. This is something called Marciano, an Unexpected Friend. It's a little short video, it's just over a minute long. It was released in 2015 by UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund. And it tells the story of a little boy who's an alien or an alien hybrid, alien-human hybrid, who had just enrolls in a normal school and is presented to the other members of the class. And they're very nasty to him at first. They bully him and they ostracise him. It's very sad. But then he uses his telekinetic powers during a school pageant one day. And then they look at him in amazement, and they're impressed by him, and eventually they accept him. And the tagline is, never miss the chance to get to know someone new. And it's a very strange thing, because it could be symbolic. It could be the Marciano Unexpected Friend, this little boy, in this video. He represents a child from another culture, another racial background, speaking another language from another country, and he's coming into a strange world, a refugee. For example, when I was at school, there was a young boy from Uganda who had fled his family had fled the Idi Amin regime in Uganda, and he was in my little nursery school with me. However, should we possibly interpret the extraterrestrial nature of this boy more literally? Dr. Michael Saller has written a very interesting article about that. I went to look into the background of this. It's very hard to find any background to this particular video. It was made in Chile in South America in 2015 for UNICEF. It's mentioned in the UNICEF yearly report, but there's only just one little line about it. You don't know exactly why they chose to make this little boy. Obviously, you know he's alien because he draws pictures of flying saucers. And he has pictures of stars and planets and flying saucers on his bedroom wall. So, are they instead telling us, just very, very tacitly and subconsciously, that there are extraterrestrials among us, or are we to expect there to be the presence of extraterrestrials among us? That's an interesting question. You might think that was just a one-off, but it's not the only example of what I'm talking about. This happened in Britain. This happened at a school in York. Children in a very, I think they were from the primary school, from the primary years. It was the first school. Came in one day, and they found that a UFO had crashed in their school playground. It was surrounded by tape, and there were some people in hazmat suits and police uniforms surrounding the area. And what followed was what's been described as a role-playing exercise. The children were encouraged to use their imaginations to think of certain scenarios. The children were actually interviewed for the newspaper and talked about their belief in aliens and life on other planets and things like this. Again, it's not a one-off. This has been repeated up and down across the country. It must be part of the national curriculum. Do you know Kathy Morgan, any of you? A lady from the Basis Project. Her grandson was involved in this. What message are they giving out to the children now? Are they trying to condition the youngest members of our society to become more aware of the extraterrestrial presence? If so, why? Now, it says here, right now you are being prepared for official UFO disclosure. I would prefer to put a question mark on the end of that and say, are you being prepared? Because I'm not sure exactly what's going on here. But I can't help wondering that everything I've talked about in this segment of my speech is, just imagine that there are people in this world who are in control of some of the political structures of this world who want to end the extraterrestrial truth embargo. They want to end this secrecy connected to UFOs and maybe other things as well, because the secrecy about UFOs automatically leads into other areas. Are they preparing us? And they don't want to dump everything on us in one go, because to quote David Bowie in his Starman song, it'll blow our minds. Because they're aware that we've been mind controlled. They're aware that people of the earth have been conditioned and mind controlled to panic, to feel fear, not to understand when these things happen. So what we've had possibly is a crash course in ufology. I kind of wonder if that's the case. Have we had? Are they trying to cram in everything that people like us have known about over the last 70 years into just a few short years before they finally come clean? You know, I've always had my doubts that that's possible. I've thought that the willing disclosure is not possible, but it's like a contradiction. It can't happen. It's an irresistible force, etc., immovable object. However, over these last few years I've changed my mind. I'm actually not so certain now that willing disclosure, in a scenario in which the Illuminati have lost power, that it would take place. And to be honest, if that did happen, I think we can relax, because I don't believe that the New World Order is possible in a post-disclosure world. I think, for whatever reason, this idea that we are this little oasis of life in an infinite cosmic desert is quintessential to the control of the Illuminati on planet Earth. They want us to be, to quote Carl Sagan, a pale blue dot. And that's even before you get into the area of free energy, anti-gravity propulsion, which will revolutionise the world in terms of the energy production, things like that. We wouldn't have to rely on fossil fuels anymore. Yeah. We'd eliminate poverty, we'd eliminate environmental destruction. I've done an entire talk on that here on this platform, actually, so you can watch the video.
Free energy is freedom.
Yeah, I've watched the entire video. I've done an entire talk for Maureen and the rest of you here, so that go into more details about that there. I don't know yet. I know what I hope is happening. And the signs are that could be what is going on right now, in which case we can expect, going back to the list of arrows I gave, something maybe in some other revelation in autumn or so, sometime in autumn, according to that schedule, I guess. Don't know for certain. It may not be full disclosure with a capital D. In other words, they just stand up and say, aliens are real. As simple as that.
What do you think about the likelihood of a Project Bluebeam scenario?
Yes, I'm going to come on to that in a minute, because that's something we need to concern ourselves with. Oh. In fact, it's the next thing. Actually, great. You're reading my mind, guys. This here is a picture drawn based on a UFO sighting in 1967. I found out about this from a very interesting chap he's a YouTuber called Alien Scientist. I don't know how many of you watch him. You watch him, yeah. Jeremy Reese, his name is.
I like that Michael Schrack who's done the. He's very good.
This is an illustration I did for UFO Truth magazine because I did an article about this. Michael Schrack, who studies these sort of things, believes that this could be this UFO, this cylindrical UFO with these little appendages on, seen in 1967 at Wickham, Pennsylvania, USA, might actually not be extraterrestrial. It might actually be an aircraft built on Earth by Lockheed Martin or one of the other defence contractors. And what's more, several people have noticed a similarity between this and the report of the Tic Tac footage. The white cylinder, the little appendages, the little protuberances here, which are designed to generate electricity. This is where we get into a difficult question. To give Greer his credit, I mean, I think Greer goes too far. He's certain of this. I'm not certain of this. But Dr. Stephen Greer believes that we are being set up for a fake alien invasion involving, as that lady said, Project Bluebeam, which is the ability to create realistic looking three-dimensional objects in the sky. If you think that's not possible, I've seen it done. I saw it's done. I saw it done at Thorpe Park with lasers. All you need is like some kind of cloud of smoke or steam. You need a laser display, and you can create a very realistic looking image in the sky.
And how long ago was that at Thorpe Park?
It was in the 80s when I was a kid.
So you have to imagine where that technology is now.
Yeah, just imagine exactly. It's not even secret they can do this sort of thing. Also, of course, it could be they could design certain craft to look like aliens and pretend to be aliens. In fact, in my books, I actually talk about that in my books.
Book your bookie, Ben.
I will at the end, yes. I'll plug my book at the end.
There's one in the raffle prize.
I will, yeah.
Tell them they need more tickets.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, yeah, get the raffle tickets, guys. But so, is it possible that Greer is right and that we are being set up for what Carol Rosin, one of his witnesses, is called the last card? The last card. In other words, everything we've seen since 2017 is a hoax. Llewellyn Elizondo, David Fravor, they're all just playing their part in a hoax, which will lead to us being told eventually that aliens exist, but guess what? They're evil aliens. And what's more, we need a global state of emergency to protect the planet. Temporary, of course. And this would involve, for example, hyper-regulation of the economy, breakdown, the suspension of elections, the institution of global this, global that. In other words, a dictatorial one-world government, exactly like that United Earth I told you about would be.
National Space Service.
Yeah. Sir?
I don't know if you're coming on. Are you aware of Dr. David Greer?
Stephen Greer. That's what I'm talking about, yeah.
Greer, sorry, I'm getting it mixed up there.
That's
Richard Day.
Who?
Richard Day.
Richard Day.
Day. He did a talk in the 1960s on how they would control the world. He was an insider. When I first heard it, I didn't pay much attention to it. Insider, he said, first of all, we're going to control through communism, which was happening at the time. Then he said, we're going to control it through third world dictators. And then we're going to come on to the medicines, bringing on diseases. And the last one, when we take over the world completely, is with aliens.
Funnily enough, that's almost exactly what Carol Rosin said.
Yeah,
she was quoting.
That's why I went back and revisited, and it paid more attention when I realised Richard Day was part of Planned Parenthood.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
You can still get his
Planned Parenthood.
She got that from Erna von Braun.
Werner von Braun, yes, that's the scientist. He was actually an SS officer who built missiles to attack Britain and ended up building the space program. Yeah. But it's funny you should say that because that's exactly what Carol Rosin said. It could be. So this is what I'm concerned about. So, but at the same time, Greer is 100% certain is what's going to happen. He's basically saying we should prepare ourselves for this inevitable eventuality. I'm saying that's something we have to bear in mind, but not necessarily accept it as fact.
The last thing I'd say, I agree with your point there. They can play both sides of the coin.
Yeah.
And use the fact there's aliens there to actually control the whole planet.
Well, I'll come on to that in the end. Yeah, but At the same time, though, if there is a genuine breakdown in the Illuminati power structure of the world, and what we're heading for is actual willing disclosure, then that's an opportunity we can't afford to miss. So I think we should tread a middle ground between extreme naivety and extreme cynicism, because right now we just don't know. We don't know which direction this is going in. We'll have to wait and see. But who needs aliens? As Boromir, once again, good old Boromir, it's a strange fate that we should suffer so much fear and doubt over so small a thing. Yeah, it's I believe that the Aquarius is there 2016.
And that is a CGI image.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it's not a no. The virus is too small to photograph. But isn't it odd that it's like when 2016 happened, the Illuminati absolutely panicked. They absolutely, you know what, themselves. They totally. This was their worst nightmare come true. That's what I mean. They're not all powerful, and suddenly they were confronted with the fact that they were not all powerful, and they saw it for themselves how lacking in power they were, and they panicked. They said, "What are we going to do? Retaliatory strike." So they're rushing now. They're sprinting headlong to try and get their agenda over the line as soon as they can, and this is how they've chosen to do it. I'm not saying they won't try the aliens as well. But this is really, they're really going hell-bent for leather with this, and it's just so obvious what they're doing. This is their excuse to hyper-regulate the economy, control our movements, bring in international laws, control almost every aspect of our life, and indeed force medicate us, to give us, to put things in our body that, for all we know, may affect our fertility or our life expectancy. And they're not.
Forcing to make fertility, I tell you.
It's funny that there's a chap who worked for Planned Parenthood, because one of the agendas of Planned Parenthood was, one of the reasons Planned Parenthood exists is actually not to, give people choice over their lives, but it's actually because by people who say there are too many people in the world, we need fewer. And indeed there's these things called the Georgia Guidestones, which talk about the ideal world population being 500 million people. That's less than 10% of what we have now. So how are they going to achieve that? How are they going to get the population down from what it is today? I mean, these figures vary. They're being interpreted as liberally as possible. Dawn?
What year did they appear?
1982. And and get that down. Well, the only way they can do it, I think, they're going to have to start treating us.
RC Christian,
Yeah.
which is a shorthand for Rosicrucianists.
What? It's all a big mystery about how they appeared. Yeah, it's very interesting. But you see, they might think, well, they wouldn't do that, would they? They wouldn't kill billions of people. Well, they regard us as just one more species of farm animal. Look at the documents. They sign weapons for a quiet war. Even in their open documents, like Zbigniew Brzezinski, Between Two Worlds, the Grand Chessboard, they talk about us like we're a cross between children and cattle. And what does a farmer do if their herd becomes overpopulated? They go to the slaughterhouse. So you think they wouldn't do that? You think they wouldn't? I don't. I think they would. This is their 2016. Also watch Utopia on Amazon. That's very interesting.
Good.
Yeah, because they actually have a disclaimer at the beginning saying it's not based on anything real. We promise.
Yeah, but what happens is they destroy the vaccines in the factory.
Yeah.
They go and set fire to the factories.
Funnily enough, the second series of Utopia was cancelled very suddenly by Amazon just a few months before it was due to go into production. I wonder why. This is interesting. The Power of Nightmares by Adam Curtis. This is a documentary, and he says this. He says, in the past, politicians promised to create a better world, but they had different ways of achieving this, but their power and authority came from the optimistic visions they offered to the people. Those dreams failed, and today people have lost faith in ideologies. Increasingly, politicians are seen simply as managers of public life, but now they've discovered a new role that restores their power and authority. Instead of delivering dreams, politicians now promise to protect us from nightmares. They say they will rescue us from dreadful dangers that we cannot see and do not understand. What's the biggest fear factor in the world today? Yeah. They are using that virus. They're hanging that tiny little virus. They're taking that tiny little virus and they're hanging on it all kinds of ways of increasing their authority. They really are. There was a great debate on GB News actually. Andrew, this guy was saying, this guy who believes in cozy, you seriously can't expect, you don't really think the government actually want there to be lockdowns, do you? You don't think they're just doing this deliberately to make lockdowns? And Andrew, not Andrew Neil, what's his name? Neil Oliver, he turns around to me and he says, yes! That's exactly what they're doing. I don't know about you, but I think that the coronavirus is, I do think they're going to give it up at some point because it's really jumping the shark. People just aren't buying it. But they'll replace it with other things. Food shortages. It's already in the papers now that there's going to be food. There's not enough. People aren't going to be enough. The shelves are going to be emptied. There's not enough lorry drivers. There's not enough farm hands. You know, there's all things like that. Well, it's odd. They just aren't enough of them.
That's an attack on Brexit, though. I think
it is that too. Yeah. They're going to blame Brexit. I'll be coming back to that because there's going to be the EU are waging an economic war on us for Brexit. We're getting a punishment beating for Brexit now. But that the coronavirus has kind of upstaged that for the time being. But it's going to come back. But you know, the thing to do is like, well, there's loads of people on furlough who can drive a lorry. Recruit them. Give them jobs. No, we can't do that because we need food shortages, you see. Now, for controlling, interestingly, the government has brought out a project brought out a new proposal in the United States. They're doing the same thing. It actually goes much further. Farmers can now sell their land for cash benefits. The government is actually going to buy the land and offer the farmer extra money for it. I don't know the exact terminology for the policy. But this has actually gone a long way. In South Africa, this has already happened. There's already like a massive land appropriations by the government. Now, whenever this happens, it ends in disaster because once the government control the farming land, they control food distribution, and they always, every time, they can't resist using that power. This has resulted in some of the worst atrocities this world has ever seen. In Ukraine in the 1930s, Stalin took control of the farmland and 8 million people died of hunger. It's called the Holodomor. If they get away with farmer, I say if you're a farmer, you have to keep ownership of your land.
Has he got an Obama T-shirt on there as well?
He does, yeah, ironically. And it says, "Hope!" Poor little kids. Now, there's also, apparently, there's a risk of cyber terrorism, no doubt coming from Russia. They get blamed for everything now. They're going to hack the computers in the power stations and they're going to shut off our electricity. We heard if you're any of you at the Airbox meeting last night, you'll have heard them talking about this. It's actually very true. I think they're going to do this. What's more, they're going to do it. It's all about wielding their power. It's not real cyber terrorism. They're just going to do it because people will be terrified. They're going to run around like headless chickens, and the government are going to come along and saying, "Okay, we've got control of this situation, but you demoralised, frightened people are not going to fight back anymore, and you're going to allow us even more power over you to control you." That's what all this is about. The whole thing is just for that reason. But what's going on? Because you may think to yourself, well, it's frustrating because there's only a handful of us in this room. Yet we have a city of hundreds of thousands of people who are just busy watching the news right now, or watching the soap operas. What can we do? What can we do about it? Well, don't despair, because what this guy discovered is very interesting. This is a South African scientist called Lyle Watson, and he discovered something very interesting, which I think we should take encouragement from. Now you see, aren't they cute? These are snow macaques. These are little monkeys. They're lovely. They live on an island called Kashima, which is just off the coast of Japan.
Yeah,
they're lovely. And what happens is, right, Watson did a study on these creatures. These little monkeys, they eat potatoes. And they dig them up from the ground, and they dig them up from the ground and they eat them. Now one day, one of the monkeys discovered if you wash the potato in the sea, it not only gets the earth off it, it also gets a bit of salt into it, and it tastes better. And he did it. One of the other monkeys watched him do that, and they went over and tried it himself. And gradually, just through learning, through watching each other, all the monkeys eventually all learned how to do it. And Watson was impressed with their intelligence and their ability to learn from each other. And he reckoned it would probably take a couple of years for all the monkeys on the island to learn it, because they lived in different communities and some of them never met. That's not what he found. He found that once a certain proportion of the monkeys, nowhere near a majority, had learned how to do this, suddenly it was like a switch was flipped in their minds. And they all knew how to do it, even those that had never seen the original monkeys wash the potatoes in the sea.
It's the same with the cattle grid.
Yeah.
When they were
Yes, and do you remember the birds who used to? Do you remember birds pecking milk bottle tops?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
That was exactly the same. Another study was done then as well. You see the same pattern. You know, you pick the learning curve doesn't go like that as it should. It goes like that, and then it goes like that. Now, Lyle Watson calculated that roughly just 1% of the monkeys was all that was needed for all the entire community of monkeys to learn a certain thing, to get a certain thing in their heads. Now, we're closely related to monkeys. It means that possibly we will have the same thing. So long as a small proportion, nowhere near the majority of people, have certain ideas in their heads, it will immediately explode out into the entire population. And when it happens, it can happen very suddenly. It can happen almost overnight. How does it work? How is this possible? Well, this guy provides the answer. Carl Gustav Jung, famous psychoanalyst, colleague of Sigmund Freud, a far superior mind to Freud, by the way, and also far more ethically, I think, ethically noble than Freud. Freud was a mind controller. This guy was a mind freer. He said that there was something called the collective unconscious, something that basically, it was something that links all our minds together as one, and that we do actually exchange ideas between ourselves using extrasensory means.
Rupert Sheldrake.
Yeah,
Paper
the
about
morphogenetic fields, and that is basically how this is how this works. Which means we ourselves are giving out ideas when we're sitting in this room. We're giving out ideas to lots of people all around us, all through Newcastle, all through the northeast, all through the country, all through the world, and we never know when we will hit that 100th monkey point. Someone in this room tonight might be the 100th monkey. Anyone? Hands up. Rich, it could be anyone in this room. Could be the 100th monkey. We don't know.
They did a 100th monkey experiment on humans through television between England and Australia. I'll tell you about it later.
Yeah, sure, mate. No worries. Now this is the Academy of Conspiracy Theorists. Now this is where this ties in with what I just said, because it turns out that although we get laughed at and joked about, it's happening a lot less in the last few years.
Is this where you find the shill kangaroo court next door to that office?
You could be. It turns out that people like us are actually a small vocal tip of a huge silent iceberg. Opinion polls that have been released lately by the Gallup Corporation have indicated it focuses on the United States, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's similar over here. Belief in conspiracy theories, so-called, is increasing. It's firstly the Kennedy assassination we saw here. Ever since it happened in November 1963, the majority of Americans have never accepted the official story that Oswald acted alone. He always protested his innocence until his own death the following day, or the 2 days later rather. And today that's about 51%. But there's many others. For example, 11% of people in Americans question the 9/11 story. 40% believe in UFOs. I think it's 25% believe the government has UFO technology. As for the coronavirus, I mean, just look at the people refusing the vaccine. It's up to 35%. I know of people in Britain are saying they're not going to have the vaccine. If those people stick by their guns, then the vaccine passport will be unworkable. But every time something about vaccines comes on the YouTube, look at the thumbs down. Look at the comments. I think we must have passed that 100th monkey point, which means that the explosion of knowledge and activity and rejection of the agenda, it could happen any moment.
I read somewhere that in the developed world, the take-up for the vaccine is 14%.
40, yeah. Oh, you know,
Nothing like 50%.
This is why 3 presidents in southern Africa have died in the last few months of heart attacks, things like that, because they've spoken out against it, because they know it's a big subject. I cover it in detail in my zombies talk, but sub-Saharan Africa has been used as a massive biological laboratory.
Zombies talk is on YouTube.
It is, yes.
Last year, Truth Seekers Northeast.
They use this because of AIDS and everything. They know that southern Africa has been used as a massive human biological laboratory for many years. And what's more, they're putting people in office who know it, and now they're dying because they're refusing to let their people have the COVID vaccine. How much time have I got left, Maureen?
Anytime you like.
All right. I want to tell you this story.
Buy more raffle tickets.
All right.
As long as you like.
This will just take a couple of minutes to tell, but this is a. I want to give you. I'll tell you a happy story, because conspiracy theories are usually bad. This one's a happy one. This is Mount Everest, the highest mountain in the world, right? And do you know who climbed it first?
Edmund Hillary.
And
His Sherpa.
Tenzing Norgay, yeah. Two men walked, they both climbed it together. They both stepped onto the summit together. They held hands and stepped onto the summit of Everest together. However, that was never the plan. The plan was for Hillary to be the sole person to step on there first. That was the expedition model. So what happened was when they got back to their base camp, they were told to sign some documents, which they were told. Well, Tenzing was given some documents to sign. He was told these are just routine things, you know, to do with administration. The thing about Tenzing, he could speak English, but he couldn't read the language. He couldn't read English. And what the documents actually stated was, I, Tenzing Norgay, I witnessed Edmund Hillary, step onto the summit of Everest ahead of me, therefore he's the first guy. They tried to trick him. And the thing about it is, though, they needed Hillary's cooperation. They needed him to corroborate it. So they went up to Hillary, to Edmund Hillary, and they said, look, we've tricked you. It's okay, don't worry. You don't have to share this achievement. We've tricked Tenzing. He's just signed a document saying you went first, okay? Don't tell anyone, right? Now, guess what? Hillary refused to betray his friend.
Good.
He did. He made up a massive stink about this. He got this document torn up. What I'm saying is that we've all got to be like that. We've got to be heroes, all of us. We've got to do the right thing every time. We don't be tempted by ego, by greed, or anything like that. We've got to look after our friends. We've got to stand up for them. There's nothing more important than the love of another. And Hillary understood this because he and Tenzing, they were like best mates their whole lives. And you could say that the attraction, for a lot of people, the lure of that achievement, of owning it yourself without having to share it, would have been enough to break a friendship. But it wasn't for him. And I think we need more people like that in this world. We need more heroic people. We are, I think, on a point where we can return to grace. We can take our place within this universal community as free people on a free planet in a free universe, able to communicate and interact with others. It'll be an amazing experience because we've been held back for so long. The sooner we start it, the better. Now, is this glass half full or half empty? In other words, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Now, a lot of people are frightened of optimism because they're frightened of disappointment. They don't want to be optimistic because, you see, if you are an optimist and you're proved wrong, you will be disappointed. But if you're a pessimist and you're proved wrong, you miss out on all the fun. You uninvite yourself from the party. So that's why I think it's always better to be an optimist. And remember what Terence McKenna, an amazing chap, really amazing, he said, the main thing to understand is that we are imprisoned in some kind of work of art. That's a very intelligent, perceptive thing to say. The question is, what kind of artwork is it? Is it some kind of degenerate postmodern monstrosity? Or is it a beautiful Renaissance painting? That's up to us.
What your perception is.
Yeah.
Only ayahuasca has the answer.
He took plenty of that. We hold the paintbrush, we hold the paints, we have the canvas, it's up to us. Now, I have a book called Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. It's a story. It's about everything I've talked about tonight and more. It's told in fictional form. It's just an imaginary scenario where we got the truth instead of the lies. It's turned into a story, which turned into 3 books actually, because I don't actually have any of the first book with me. But if you want to order it, Amazon will deliver it within a couple of days. I do have a copy of its sequel, Roswell Revealed, The World After Disclosure, and Roswell Redeemed, Humanity After Disclosure. They're £10 each. I'll sell them both to you for £15 if you want them both. And you just order the first one from Amazon.
You can win one on the raffle.
Yeah. There's a copy of Redeemed as a raffle prize as well, so you might want to wait till after the raffle is drawn. Yeah, wait till after the raffle is drawn, but then please, I will be here until the end. Please do come up and pick up a copy of these books. I'll sign them for you. They'll be worth a lot of money in a few years with my signature on them. There's the entire Roswell trilogy. If you enjoyed this speech and you're interested in these subjects, I guarantee you will enjoy these novels. You really will. If you want to know more about me, my name is Ben Emlyn-Jones. This is my website, Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. There's 6 blogs, there's my YouTube channel, my radio shows, there's also some selected fiction online, as well as the books I've just told you about. So do check that out. There's an awful lot there. I've been doing this for a long time. Thank you very much, all of you.
I'm not letting you go yet. We need to sell more raffle tickets. 3 of the prizes tonight. The Great British Coronavirus Hoax by Nick Colostrum, who was one of our speakers.
Hi, Dr. Nick.
Roswell Revealed by Ben Emlyn-Jones, and another one of our speakers, Kieran Woodhouse, Paranormal Investigation. You need more tickets. 50 pence a strip. I'll pass them round. Right. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. You're
for
very
coming
welcome.
to our humble abode.
Thank you very much.
Can I present you with an extra large?
Oh, wow.
An extra large.
Lovely, lovely.
Trustica Northeast t-shirt.
Oh, thank you very much.
Trustica
Oh, man.
Northeast t-shirt.
That's lovely. I think you might need something like a triple XL. If you get like double XL or something, because like, you know, look how big I am. This is, you know, look at this is double XL. But thank you, Maureen. That's lovely. Oh, thank you. That's lovely. I wear that with pride.
We have Trustica Northeast t-shirts, small, medium, large and extra large, and we have Trustica caps. £7 for the t-shirts, £6 for the caps. See me later. You know you want one.
Oh,
Thank
lovely,
you, Ben.
thanks. Oh,
Thank
you're
you
very
again.
welcome. Thank you.
And he's
Thank
here
you, all of
tomorrow.
you.
He's here tomorrow
Yeah.
afternoon to
Do you want to
do
come
the
back
same.
tomorrow? I'll be doing this talk again tomorrow. I've repeated the same thing. It will be a slot.
And we'll also have Richard.
Dawn said, he said.
Any questions, Ben?
I want the list of shows, please.
All right, you have to wait till after the New World Order, but I will do a list of shills, yeah.
That's all I've got.
That's very bad.
Anyone else got a question?
When you stand on flat earth.
Oh, you've got
The Earth's not flat, sorry. The Earth is not flat. Yeah.
You know last night when Jenny brought up about the schools in September about the teachers
Yeah,
bringing us
Any
to
more
the
tickets?
kids?
yes.
Do you not think that would be the point where a lot of people would just say, no, this is...
I think as Jenny said, that will be,
So
yeah.
September should be the time when we just say, right, this is it.
As Jenny said, I think that's something that's going to, whenever you hear your parents, as a father myself, I know this, they will break, yeah, they'll snap at that point.
People are like, no.
If it comes out like that, I know it's mine.
People will snap at that point, yeah, they really will.
Because I thought you made a good point when you said, should you know, there was people in that room last night who said you would stand and see the next
Yeah,
That's a good one.
don't even know what it is.
yeah.
So that was a good point.
Well, I know what I would do if my daughter was still at school, yeah, because when my daughter's 26 now, but when she was at school, the school just tried to take her fingerprints. They tried to take her fingerprints. They didn't even going to ask me. They weren't going to ask for what reason. I mean, they said it was to do with the library. I thought, what's a library got to do with fingerprints? Anyway, obviously I refused. But it's that's one of the things that actually inspired me to set up Panwell, because that actually happened in 2006. And that's one of the things that got me to set up a Panwell, that experience. Okay, we're just going to do souvenirs. Now, this is my laptop, which came in very handy, and this is the charger. Actually, that's Maureen's charger. I've got to return it to her. Here's my toothbrush. This is my reading book. Oh, right, this is interesting. Resistance by Phoenix Soler. It's a good book, this. It's actually about a fight against the EU and globalism and things like that by patriotic people. Do not read this if you are a Remainer. Okay, if you voted Remain, you don't want to read this. Interestingly, the author, Phoenix Soler, very French name. Now, I first came across this author who writes these books. He's written a series of novels. They're allegorical novels, a bit like Roswell, my books. The first book was called The Partisan, and it was set in France. The characters were French. So I assumed he's a French author. And I enjoyed the book so much, I went and looked up an interview with him online. He had a radio interview, and so I thought, a French author, that'll be interesting about this book. So, but the moment he opened his mouth, and the moment I heard his voice, his accent, I realised this guy's from South Wales. So I assume Phoenix Soler must be a pen name that he chose, a nom de plume, because he's written a book about France. Authors do that sometimes, you know. Lewis Carroll's real name was Charles Dodgson. There's several other examples. I use my own name for my fiction. My first novel, Evansland. I think if I hadn't already had such a very Welsh name, I might choose a Welsh pen name. But you can do that if you write. Actually, you don't have. The author's name doesn't have to be your own name. Anyway, very good book. Very good book. There's my moisturiser. There's a flannel. My new Truth Seekers Northeast hat I've been given, and also I've been given something else. Look at this. It's a hip flask for spirits. I can hide that on the coach, but look what it says here. Then, if ever there was a Ben that embraces inner superhero. Oh, that's lovely. That's a present from Truth Seekers Northeast. Fantastic. It's a plastic bag, and that's the end of my souvenirs. Okay, I'm driving to the station now on this Sunday morning. I've got Dawn there in the back seat and Maureen driving, and these are my friends I've been staying with and who help organise this amazing conference. I just want to say a big thank you to them and say that I'm going to miss them very badly. I'm now going to have to go back to my so-called real life, my normal life, where, you know, there's me another lockdown within a few weeks probably, or something like that, or fake alien invasion or something like that. But we've just been saying apparently, right, if you get it now, so Yabu sucks to you've already done it. If you get it now, you get a free slice of pizza from Domino's. Do you know that? Yeah. Was it? Oh,
Discounts.
Discounts.
Discount codes for Deliveroo and all that.
Oh my goodness me! So if you haven't, don't get it yet. Wait a few weeks, because the government will up the stakes and you might get 2 slices of pizza. Yeah. what a crazy world we live in. Oh. I'm on the train now. The journey has begun. Back to reality, so-called. The landscape we're travelling through now might look a little bit familiar to you, because we're actually not far from Holmfirth, where the UFO Truth magazine conferences take place. Where the next stop is Huddersfield. I'm on the train. It's a lovely area. funny, it always strikes me as odd that the first thing the arriving visitor finds in Oxford when they get here is the Babylonian ziggurat of the side School of Business. Up I'm home, I'm back in Oxford, and there's the old ox, symbol of the Oxford, of course. As always, it is a bit of a grim feeling, because I've spent the last 4 days, including this morning, of sort of having conversations with people and talking about things I want to talk about, and no one thinks you're crazy. And now I'm back in the world where I have to bite my tongue all the time. I have to put on an act, I have to wear a mask. And the only socialising I can do is online, which is not the same. It's not the same. The science fiction predictions were wrong. Electronic relationships are not the same as real relationships. I was saying to Maureen and Dawn, I said, we should just have a town. We could call it Wooville or something. We could just all live together in one big town. I mean, the thing is, and this is the good news, that town would probably end up being the fastest growing city in the world, wouldn't it? Another thing I've learned from this particular trip is that I think next time I'll get the coach. Next time I will get the coach. Now, the reason, as I've already explained, the reason I got the train this time is because somebody paid for me. Someone in True Seekers North East paid for me to go. One moment, ladies and gents. They paid for me to be there. Now, I'm very grateful to that person. I think they really, really meant well, and they wanted to help me. And I'm going to thank that person an awful lot when I see them. I never got the chance to see them this time, but I'll write them and I'll say thank you. The person was trying to be kind, and of course, it's thought that counts. But you know, travelling by, I don't want to get a train. Even though, how long did it take? I left at the train departed 9:39. It's now about 3:15, so it's much quicker. The train is much quicker. But the cost, first of all, the coach is roughly £60. That's period return Newcastle, Oxford Newcastle, 60 quid. The train, £162. It's an extra £100, not even twice the price. It's more than twice the price. It's almost 2/3 the price. On top of what you're already paying. It's more than three. Well, maybe sorry. What am I saying? 2/3. I mean, it's almost 3 times the price. Stress. I've already talked about I've already talked at the beginning about how train travel is far more stressful than coach travel for various reasons that I explain. And it was illustrated when I was when I got to Manchester Piccadilly. I went straight to the platform where my train was. The train wasn't due to depart for 10 minutes. People were running. They were running towards the train. Because they just wanted to get a good seat. They wanted to get a seat before they were left to. There's a nice car. Oh, lovely, it's a Porsche. Sorry, I should have just been doing a blokey thing and admiring a nice car. What was I saying? Yeah. They were running to get the train. A train that wasn't due to depart for 10 minutes. They were just bundling in. I want to get the best seat. I want to get the best seat. It reminded me of the toilet roll rush when the lockdown started. I mean, oh dearie me. And that's because, of course, with coaches, it's always one passenger, one seat. You can't stand on a coach. On a train, well, very often they're overcrowded. And this one, I've not been in a position in this journey where I had to stand at all. But the trains on both these journeys were quite crowded. I must say the Trans-Pennine Express from Newcastle to Manchester didn't really get very crowded, but the one from Manchester to Oxford did. And very often you do have to stand, and sometimes for several hours. And I can't really do that because of my bad knee. So I've actually been in a situation where I'm bloody lying on the floor because I can't sit on the floor either. Because I've got osteoarthritis on my left hip and knee. So I lie down. So I actually slept once lying down on the on a rough carpet of a train vestibule. But it only takes something like a football match or something and trains become grossly overcrowded. That generates stress. I've seen fights on trains. I've seen people shouting and swearing at each other on trains. You know, people moaning because they're taking up too much room. They won't get up. You know, you book a seat, because you can book seats in advance, and you go and there's someone sitting in there, someone sitting in the seat you've booked, and they refuse to leave. And a lot of the conductors have to do is they have to go and just try and persuade this person to leave. Sometimes they just refuse. So, yes, trains are fast. The journey by coach that I've just done would take about probably over 8 hours. So it's basically a whole day, more or less. I just had to leave early, I would arrive later. I mean, as you saw, you know what happened when I went to Cardiff recently. The trains are much, much quicker. But that is literally the only advantage I can think of. And so next time I will get the coach. If this person offers to pay again, I will say thank you very much. I know you mean well. You're trying to be kind, and I appreciate the gesture, but thanks, but no thanks. I'm now going to do a bit of shopping, because I either do shopping now or I do shopping tomorrow after work. But I'll get back into normality soon enough. You know, the post-Pro blues, or in this case, post-Truth Seekers North East blues, it's not nice, but it doesn't last long. You literally just a day at the most, and I get back to normal. But well, I've had fun. I've had enormous fun. It's been great to see my friends again. I love them to bits. I really appreciate them inviting me. I think both Richard and I did some really good talks. You'll see Richard's talk on the off-duty video, which is coming up. Or yeah, it is coming up. I will upload my own first. But in the meantime, thank you very much to Truth Seekers North East for everything they've done. Thank you very much to all of you for watching. Hospital Porters, Pride and Dignity, Stop the New World Order.